Hey there, Objectively Dan here. Lots of people believe a lot of different things, and that's why we're talking to folks every single Friday about what they believe and why. So if you believe in alternative facts, if you believe that, I don't know, Jesus crossed the Rubicon or something, like I want to know, you should tell me because this call-in show is starting right now. Folks, hello, and welcome back to another episode of Truth Wanted. I am your host, Objectively Dan. This is a live call-in show that happens every single week, Fridays at 7 p.m. Central Time, where we talk to people about what they believe and why. And if you want to call us, you should do that because we have open lines right now. The number is 512-991-9242, or you can call through your computer at tiny.cc/call TW. Truth Wanted, if you haven't heard of it before, is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. And every single week, folks, I try to have a special guest. This week is no different. I have Jess joining me today. Jess, welcome to Truth Wanted.
It's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yes, I am so glad you're here. Jess, you're an activist who's worked behind the scenes, including on some Atheist Community of Austin projects. But if you could describe yourself, how would you describe yourself?
I spent so much of the last year organizing a protest for the Ark encounter in Kentucky. So I guess that's kind of the focus of what I've been doing a lot of lately. And then I've been making content on my own YouTube channel and putting out shorts and videos on everything from cognitive biases to young earth creationism.
Yes, and that protest at the Ark encounter, we talked about it here on the show because we had some folks actually go to it from here. Kelley Laughlin, our backup host today, was able to go there, and you guys got to hang out while you were there. But what made you decide to organize a protest at the Ark encounter?
I know a lot of people, a lot of atheist community people, and it was all about reaching out to see if people were interested. It was a good cause. We knew that the Tri-State Freethinkers had been in charge of it previously, and they gave us a lot of help. And it was my friend Joe, and I assisted with doing graphics and getting people to come and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, and so for those who somehow aren't aware, right, they do have this thing in Kentucky called the Ark Encounter, run by a guy named Ken Ham with an organization that he's a part of out there. And it's just a museum full of bullshit, right? I mean, like, there's no real facts involved in anything that's in there as far as I'm aware.
No, though there may be actual bullshit because they do have a petting zoo.
Okay, yeah, and that's fun. You know, that's cool, I guess.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, as far as everything I've ever seen, because I've never been there myself, but from what I've seen from the footage, they've got like crates pretending like what it would look like on the actual ark with like animals and dinosaurs and stuff in there. They've got these dioramas with like clothing and things that Noah would have worn and his family would have worn, you know, these kinds of sort of fake archaeological exhibits going on, right?
Yes. And I like animatronic dinosaurs and lots and lots of false science going around about the age of the Earth being
Yeah.
6,000 years old based on, from what I understand, that somebody did a calculation quite some time ago that added up all the genealogies and they got to 6,000 years. And that seems to be the timeline that young Earth creationists generally stick with.
Yeah, and so like you know, it's been around for a little bit now. This Ark encounter thing. I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon. From what I've seen, like even the local government in Kentucky has helped supported it like in numerous ways. So you know, what's the purpose of organizing a protest like the one that you helped organize?
We want to bring a lot of attention to the subject, really, that why is this massive thing getting support from the government from Kentucky? Why are they allowed to spread such scientific misinformation? There was one point where they were trying to um, get schools to come and offering it free for public schools. And if you'll just come, it'll be free, guys. and we get to teach the minds,
Yeah. And obviously, you don't want to teach bullshit to kids, right? I mean, it's just
Exactly.
pretty straightforward there. But you yourself actually were a young Earth creationist as well, right?
I was.
Yeah.
I went to a young Earth creationism school up until high school. So that was a big eye-opening experience to go to a public high school after I had creation science class instead of actual science class.
You say you went to a young Earth creation school. Do you mean just like a Christian school in general?
It was a
Mm,
independent Baptist school.
okay.
Your typical women have to wear skirts.
Okay.
Very, very, yeah.
So
Um,
I'm guessing sex education was not on the curriculum.
Sex education, Dan.
I'm guessing
There was none of
evolution
that.
not
Mm-mm.
there. Probably I don't know what else you wouldn't have to learn. History maybe was a little bit scuffed, perhaps.
And
Yeah.
that was a big eye opener for me in high school when I took like an ancient civilization class, and they started with the evolution of man. And then they move on to like Mesopotamian cultures and stuff like that. But I wrote a whole essay about how evolution was wrong and God made the earth in 6 real days. And
Wow. If you
yeah,
submit that to the University of Oklahoma, they might
right?
appreciate that there, right? There's
They
some stuff
might,
going on
they
there.
might. Somehow
But
I did
yeah,
pass. Maybe that's
right. Yeah, we I don't know if we talked about that story on here. Maybe we can talk about that in a little bit here. But back to focusing on you with this. I did not grow up as a young Earth creationist. I've talked about this before. I was a Christian, but I never a young Earth creationist. I really didn't have too much of an issue with evolution. I was one of those Christians that said, "Oh, well, God just started off with people and then they kind of just evolved over time to what we are today." Kind of, I don't know, it didn't really make a whole lot of sense, but it was there, it was a
yeah.
belief. How do you go from going to a school that's literally telling you this is how the world works to becoming somebody that organizes protests against the Ark encounter?
Something must have clicked somewhere along the way, and I owe it to people I think more like James Randi that made me sort of start to question things. Um, and just learning to be skeptical, I think, is a really important aspect of it, and realizing that, hey, you can be wrong about things, or you can look into things outside of the religion, and it's actually okay to do that. And giving yourself permission to do that, I think, is also really important.
Mm-hmm. So is it James Randi? You just like saw some random YouTube videos of James Randi? How did that
Oh,
happen?
man, I saw a TED Talk to begin with, and then I saw documentaries. I started looking into his past. I went down the rabbit hole of magicians like Penn and Teller
Mm-hmm.
that debunk things, and I have a deep passion for realizing that I was wrong and learning new information and making those new connections.
So at what
Um,
point, how long ago was it that you started to
um,
call yourself an atheist?
10 years now, I'd say.
10 years.
Um,
Okay.
about 10 years. And before then, I was a pagan. I was fully, I believed in like Artemis.
Okay, wait a
Um,
minute. Okay, so wait,
yeah,
there's some twists and turns in this. So you didn't
there
just
is.
go from the Christian to atheist, right? You went on a
Mm,
detour then.
There was a class called World Religion, Dan. I couldn't help but research other religions, and I
Sure.
researched paganism.
Okay. And you were like, I
And
fuck with this. Like, this is awesome. That was kind of okay.
it made sense at the time. I was 17, you
I'm
know.
not, there's no judgment here. I'm just curious because, that wasn't my life path. So I'm just wondering
Yeah,
how that happens. I guess you just looked up, I guess you sounds like you took some classes on some world religions and then you're like, oh,
I
that's,
did.
and you kind of looked more
It's
into
all
that.
about falling down rabbit holes and letting yourself feel okay about researching things that maybe the church tells you that you can't research, or feeling certain ways about hell. That's another one
Mm,
coming out of religion, and even going from Christianity to paganism. The fear of hell is still kind of bubbling in the back of your mind.
okay. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense because obviously, it's not just for atheists, right? Hell's for pagans too, I guess, right? It's for everybody that's
Yes,
not a believer in Jesus Christ
not a
as our
believer.
Lord and Savior, right? So, you know, that totally tracks with me. I guess I'm wondering, because as an atheist, you know, when you go down that route, it can be a lonely thing because you don't have to agree or disagree with any group of people. You just kind of are your own thing, right? How is it like when you do the pagan thing? Because is that, I imagine it's also similarly sort of idiosyncratic in that way, right? You don't have to join any groups or anything. Were you a part of any groups at that time?
I attended various events. I'm Canadian, so a lot of the events that I attended were in Toronto. There's the WCC was a thing. This was many, many years ago. But no, I was a solitary practitioner
Mm-hmm.
of Hellenismos or Hellenic paganism. So I had like my pantheon was Artemis and Zeus and Hera and all of the great Greek deities.
Can I ask how
Um,
that works? Do you just get to like you just pick just because like you like it, like just based on vibes, or like how does?
it's on the person.
Yeah. Okay.
For for myself, I'll be honest, it had a lot to do with Xena Warrior Princess because
Okay. Hell yeah.
badasses
All
in
right.
leather,
I
you
like
know.
that. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. You would think that I would be more interested in my own ancestry or something like that. I am not Greek. I was just obsessed with Greek pantheon, and
Hmm.
I knew different practitioners that practiced like different heathen religions, like Asatru, and I don't know if I'm saying that right. Um, but I've been saying it that way for a very long time. So please let me know
So,
if I'm saying it wrong.
so that sounds like that's another appeal then to sort of the pagan traditions is that you can feel like you're part of a sort of larger collective
Yeah,
identity, right? Like if there's an ancestry part that's involved in that.
yeah, yeah. Because like my family is Irish and Scottish, so there's the Celtic deities that are very difficult to pronounce, and that
Right.
may have been mostly why I didn't go there.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. But so you're doing the Christian thing. You're young Earth gracious. Then you're like, fuck all this. I'm fucking with Artemis now, and this
Yes,
is my thing. But then you
yes.
become an atheist. So is it through kind of watching this James Randi debunk stuff? You're like, hey, maybe this stuff isn't real either. What was that thought process?
Man, I'm a bit of a fangirl. It was totally the ACA.
Yeah. Okay.
Just watching a lot of ACA videos, a lot of Atheist Experience, Truth Wanted, Talk Heathen, even shows that are no longer airing that I wish could come back because they were amazing shows. And I think that it's really important work that you and the ACA does in regards to people that are questioning or have questions about religion and other things. Like you said, we want the truth, right?
Yeah, that's the idea anyway. But yeah, that's great to hear that the ACA, was a little bit a part of your journey there.
Yeah.
And now, as an outward atheist for at least the last 10 years, sounds like you've been doing your own activism in that space, which is great. Do you ever
Yeah.
miss going back to being a Christian or being a pagan?
Christian, no. Pagan, yes.
Okay, why is that?
Um, the pagans are so much more cool and accepting,
I agree
and
with that.
yeah, and I don't find the same community with Christianity that you do with the pagans, and you don't get to dance around bonfires, and really, it's about the bonfires.
Yeah, I respect that. And some people ask, why do we talk about Christianity so much when there's all these other kinds of religions? And it's true, we do talk about Christianity more than any other religion. There's no doubt about that. Because I
Yeah,
don't really care what pagans are up to. You know what I mean? Pagans are just kind of doing their own thing for the most part. I know there's
yeah,
problematic groups. I know there can be issues with systemic abuse and trust and power and all kinds of, just like you can with any organized group of religion and any organized
yeah.
group in general, right? But like there's no pagan nationalist movement that's messing with the
No,
country right now. You know what I mean? Like there's no
there is not.
like larger sort of impact on my life that any individual pagan is having, whereas a lot of the Christians in my life are either a part of the oppression or benefiting from the oppression that other Christians are sort of enabling, right? So, you know, I try not to pick on pagans too much, because if anything, they know what they want, right? It's like, okay, you get the cool shit, you get the cool sort of symbolism and stuff in the stories, and it's like, yeah, okay, there's an appeal there. I get that, you know?
Yeah, definitely. The community is so completely different between the two, honestly, and the you're allowed to do everything or you're allowed to do nothing.
Yeah.
Night and day.
Yeah. If I had to, like, if I didn't have my wife and I had to, like, be roommates with somebody for the rest of my life, and all I knew was I could pick between a pagan and a Christian, and I didn't know anything else about them, I would pick the pagan 7 days of the week, because I know that whatever they believe, it's probably like 80% at least kind of fucking cool, and they're probably down for a lot of shit. Like it's just, when you're a minority in a larger majority in anywhere, you're kind of forced to be open-minded in some ways, right? Because you have to be able to recognize that other people don't think the same way you do, and you have to kind of either justify to yourself in a way why you feel the way that you do, or recognize other people also have are you know, under this larger system as well. So there's some commonalities there, I think, between being a pagan and being an atheist, at least in the US. So
Canada too, I'd say. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And Canada, you know, that counts, I'd say.
Counts?
You know?
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'd say that's true. Before we keep going with our conversation here, Jess, I want to bring in our backup host today, Kelley, who has some exciting words to share with us. The Gospel of Kelley is going to be shared with us, I think, today. Right, Kelley?
Sure. Anything you would say. You know what? Because you brought up pagans, and I was just sitting here listening to it, and that's kind of the world that I came out of, right? And I have to say, first off, that pagans throw better parties than any other group of people I ever fucking hung out with.
Hell
right?
Yeah.
But I also want to say that bad thinking is still bad thinking. And just keep this in mind. It took 1,000 years for the Christians to organize a crusade.
So you think that pagan, because that's a slippery slope, because I don't know. There's definitely, I don't know. There's some things with that, Kelley. There's some things with that. Maybe that's for a different time, because right now we got to talk about our question of the week.
I'm just throwing some food out there for thought. But what I really came here to talk about was the question of the week.
Yes, that's right. Tell us about this question.
So our question last week was, what kind of ornament would you hang to start an argument? Which I thought was a great question. And we got some really good questions, or answers, excuse me. And here was our top 3 from Chuck Gatos. Number 3, for ambitious ornamentation, replace the nativity scene with some Roman soldier stealing a body from a tomb.
Nice.
I know, I like that one. I thought that was freaking awesome.
That's got to be a thing. I can't believe that. I've never seen a picture like that before, but somebody has to have done that, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's such a great idea. I want to make little anti-nativity sets. Is that what you would call that? An
anti-nativity? Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. All right. And what's the next one, Kelley?
From number 2, from Troy Cucchiera, and I'm hoping I said that name correctly. Ornament to argue over: a huge photo of one of the house guests as the star at the top of the tree.
Okay.
That's going to cause some arguments with the family and friends, I'm pretty sure.
Okay. I'm picking up what they're putting down. I think anybody that wouldn't be Jesus, I guess, might be kind of weird, right? I don't know. I mean, it's still weird if it's Jesus, but
I don't know if you can call Aunt Jane an angel.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that conversation starting.
Then number 1 from Anastasia, an ornament to argue over: just a plain red ball with no mention of Christmas.
True.
If you don't know, reference the Starbucks Red Holiday Cup.
Put a Starbucks logo on that ornament. And then was it Josh? Was it Fierstein? That's his last name? Man, I haven't thought about that guy in a long time. What's he up to?
Wow.
Probably nothing good, you know?
Most likely.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. A lot of I haven't seen as many Christian or people being mad at the Merry Christmas stuff this year. Have you?
Yeah.
It's probably been out there. I probably just been too busy.
Yeah,
to pick up on
I
it.
have too, but I'm sure it's still out there.
Yeah.
I could see him giving up on it after a while. I mean, like the nuns are growing a lot bigger.
Why would you
As
grow
time
up?
goes by, you know,
That's where that
the-
money is, baby.
You know,
If-
so I
if-
mean, yeah.
That's because you're not a hustler, Kelley. You're not about that grind, okay?
No, I'm not.
I'm on that grifter grind 24/7. You understand?
Yeah, I get you. I get you.
Mhm.
At my age, you want to get off the grind.
I gotcha. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
done leading people astray through cryptocurrency scams and whatnot.
Sure
Yeah.
enough. So, our prompt for next week, I knew I was forgetting something, is what is an innocent text during the day, but not at night? And to me, this was a really hard one, but I think Jess has a good answer for us.
Oh, no, I don't know if they're good. I have some. Okay. So my first thought was for the morning, I found your sock.
Okay. All
different
right. Yep.
meaning.
That's a good one. I like that.
And then if you want to get a little like 60s spy, we have, did you feed the ducks?
Okay. Yeah. Wait. Am I missing something? Am I dumb? I don't get it.
No,
So
it's
in
like a
the
spy
morning, you're
password.
just feeding the ducks. But if someone calls you at midnight and says,
Okay.
Did
All
you
right. Yeah.
feed the
Okay. I see.
ducks?
I'm picking up what you're putting down. So it's kind of the crow flies west
yeah,
at midnight kind of thing.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All
Yeah.
right.
Well,
All right, I
those are
like
my
those.
ideas.
What do you think, Dan? Do you have one?
I really didn't have a good one, honestly. I was trying to think about it before the show, and you know what? I'm not really prepared. Honestly, if I'm getting texts from anybody during the day, it's probably my friends that were probably talking about video games or something. I don't know. It's probably bullshit. I live a boring life when it comes to text messages, so not creative enough. But you know who is going to be creative, Kelley, is the people who comment in the comment section.
I'm
So maybe
sure
they can
they
come up
will.
with some better answers and not me who just like gave up. So
I'm sure they will. And I'm going to remind everybody, put them in the comments below, not in the chat on the side where we're all talking right now. So, and we will read out the top 3 next week.
yes, we will. Kelley, thanks so much. Anything else you want to add, my friend?
No, I think I've said my piece.
All right. Sounds good. Well,
You know
we'll
what? I'm going to keep notes though.
and keep
I always
notes.
keep notes, and I will have something to say at the end of the show. So,
Oh, okay. All right. Well, sounds good. Well, we're just gonna pick Kelley up and toss him back into the Kelley hole, and there he goes back in there. I don't know. That sounds kind of weird calling it the Kelley hole, but you know, maybe we should poll for a different name.
I was going to say we need a poll for that. Yeah.
Yeah. What should we call the hiding space in which we put Kelley while he waits for one of us to drop out and replace us if necessary, or if a call about geology comes on? I don't know. Leave your comments below, or maybe another time we can make it a question of the week. But just, you know, right now we still have open lines. So if people should call in to come talk to us, if you're a Christian or if you're an atheist or if you're a pagan, I want to know about the pagan perspective. Call in 512-991-9242 or call through your computer at tiny.cc/calltw. Otherwise, I'm going to keep kicking it with Jess here, talking about the pagan thing. Okay, so Kelley was like, you know, saying pagans could, in 1,000 years, you know, be like Christians. Is kind of what he was saying, right? They could have their own kind of crusade. They could have their own sort of thing with it. Do you agree with what Kelley said?
Honestly, don't feel like they're even on that angle towards doing that, though. They mostly just want to be left alone.
I think that's true too. I also think it would be, if you looked at early Christianity though, and you looked at the first Christians, it would be hard to see them.
That's true.
As the force that would become the thing they are today. So the problem is every religious group ever, including, I would say, secular people, like atheist people, because there's some evidence, there's history of this too, is going to be run by people, right? And people have their own cultures, their own ideas, and their own wants and values, and that's flexible and is going to change at different times. So I mean, modern interpretations of paganism are, I mean, I would argue by and large probably not the same as the folks that were practicing it like 1,000, 2,000 years ago, right? So
and who knows what practice would look like in another even 100 years for paganism, because they didn't have so much of it written down before, and now everything's written down, so they can look back 100 years from now. What were they practicing 100 years ago? Well, we have all of that data. We know exactly what they were doing, what books were popular, where different avenues went, who was in certain circles and covens and things like that.
Right. That's sort of the strength of paganism, though, is that you can kind of, again, it's so individualistic. You can just kind of make it your own sort of thing. And there's not really a real, I don't know, maybe pagans would feel differently, but I feel like most pagans would agree with the statement that there's no right or wrong way to do paganism. Would you agree with that? Would you think that's accurate?
No, there's so much gatekeeping. There's
so you think there is a lot of gatekeeping then for like right and wrong. So what does that look like then?
Oh man, back in the day, do you remember LiveJournal? That was a thing back in the day.
Oh, I'm sure there's some 2004 LiveJournal pagan posts that are heavy with drama, right? That's probably
they are.
Oh yeah.
And it's all like, oh, you shouldn't be worshiping that deity. That's not the right deity for you. You're the wrong gender for that deity. You are the wrong culture for that deity.
Okay. Yeah. The cultural appropriation, that makes sense. I can see that being an issue. Yeah.
There was a lot. There was the whole term fluff bunnies for new Wiccans that people would throw around, like, oh, you only believe in the light, fluffy pink things about paganism, like you're Wiccan and you believe and ye harm none, do what ye will, and do that whole thing. And I had a lovely conversation with Kelley, actually. And I forgot where I'm going, Dan.
That sounds like Christianity a little bit, though. How many Christians are like, oh, you're just you're one of those Christians that don't go to church and don't read the Bible. You just say you're a Christian. I mean, that sounds like it's in similar lines.
There can be, especially if you're in a larger city where there's a lot of intermixing of people in covens and groups and communities and things like that. I was never like a member of anything like a Gardnerian tradition or Alexandrian tradition or anything like that. I just practiced on my own because everybody seemed kind of mean.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And that's a lot of people's experience I've heard from pagan communities as well, is like, again, there's like infighting and drama and stuff, but and I'm not picking on pagans in particular. I think that happens everywhere. I'm just saying, like, it
does.
It's one of those things where, it can kind of be a thing of social. It has the same social dynamics that any other kind of group similar to it would have, that you can imagine. It's not unique in that respect. So I understand. Definitely. I understand that. But yeah, I guess it does kind of make you wonder if Kelley's point is true then, because if pagans would become, let's say if there's many pagans as there are Christians in this country, what would paganism look like? Because it might interpret things quite differently. I don't know. Or the groups might interpret things quite differently, but we don't live in that world. So I don't know.
Yeah, you could write a whole novel on that, like a whole dystopian pagan future, and what would that look like? You could kind of break that apart, and
that should be a thing if it's not already.
Yeah.
That's probably somebody's live journal right there. Just
there you go.
Pagan world, pagan nationalist sort of fan fiction, maybe. I don't know. Something to think about. I actually didn't think you were going to talk about paganism this much while you're, getting ready for today's show, though.
It's a part of who I am on a more recent level than the Christianity, I think, because I stopped believing around 17 for young Earth creationism, and I believed a whole lot of wooey things after that about if you want a new topic, my mom was an iridologist.
An iridologist, what is that?
Yes, the study of the eye and how it relates to the rest of your body.
Oh no! So wait, relates to the rest of your body. What does that mean?
Okay, my mom told me that if you have a ring of brown around the pupil,
Okay.
that means that you're constipated.
Oh, okay. So like literally just physical symptoms of the body. I thought you were talking about some phrenology kind of thing. Like,
Oh no,
oh,
it's
if you got
completely
blue eyes,
phrenology.
that
It
means
is.
you can't
Yes.
you can't comprehend math or something. But you're saying it can relate to
Yeah,
physical sort of
but
ailments.
it's not how that works, though. It's not real science. It is entirely phrenology-esque.
So
Yes,
your mom is into that. Is she still into that?
probably.
Okay.
No contact.
Gotcha.
That's a whole topic.
Yeah.
But I grew up with just so many interesting things, herbs and iridology and reflexology and cupping, magnet therapy.
Wow. This was from your family?
Yeah.
So, but they believed all this kind of stuff, but they also took you to a Christian school?
Well, this was all, a lot of it came from people at church, though. They would come home and, oh, there's worse ones. I don't think I can say them on the air. Um, there, the amount of things that once you believe something and you trust people that also believe that thing, the information that you allow in to accept, I think gets a little fuzzier.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
because if you're trusting the people that are telling you that yeah, the eyes definitely can tell you if you have kidney disease.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It
I mean
doesn't
that
work
makes
that way.
sense, right? Because if it's in your sort of community space and you're
Yeah.
hearing about this, I mean that's the whole point of church, basically, is
Yeah.
say like, hey, here's a group of people you can trust about these kinds of beliefs, and that's what makes it more like you're a market. Suddenly you're a market group
Yeah.
that can be identified. I remember when I was in college, there was this girl that came back from a mission trip in South America, and she told this story. She was like, guys, there was this pastor there, I guess, that was praying over people, and there was somebody who couldn't walk, and then they prayed over them, and suddenly they're walking around like they're they had a back that wasn't straight, but then they were straight again, and they could kind of walk around and do stuff. And I remember thinking at the time, like, oh man, that's like one of the oldest tricks in the book in like the sort of faith healing stuff, because even then I was still skeptical of like that kind of stuff, and to a lot of Christians' credit, a lot of Christians were, but it's like how many people were kind of more convinced because she told that story? I don't know, but we were the group to hear it.
I know.
Yeah, so a lot of stuff with that, but we do have some folks that want to talk to us now. You want to talk to some callers?
Sounds good.
Okay, great. Let's do it. Our first person that we're going to be talking to today, looks like my notes are getting all screwy here. Let's see. I'm going to hit the talk button and see what happens if they let me hear. Caller, you are live on Truth Wanted. Can you hear us?
Yes, Dan. I spoke to you a few years back when Jamie Woodhouse was on.
Oh, no. Hello? Are you still there? Uh-oh. We might be having some technical difficulties here. We're going to figure this out. Let's see. Oh, I'm going to hit talk button again. Let's see if this maybe fixes it. Hello. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you guys hear me?
There we go. Yes. Can you tell us your name? Because right now the call screening equipment is not displaying your name for me.
This is Louis from New York.
Louis from New York.
Dan,
Thanks so much.
A couple of years ago when Jamie Woodhouse was on, and we had a fun discussion about UFOs over L.A.
Yeah, I think I remember that, Louis. Thanks so much for calling in. Sorry, we're having a little bit of technical difficulties. What do you want to talk to us about today on this show?
Yes, I don't have any new UFO stories, but so from my recollection, this show's discussed things like religion, cults, and nationalism in terms of a group bias, and I'm curious whether you guys think that the same concern applies to how humans view themselves, like relative to sentient animals. So if moral value ought to be based on sentience rather than group membership, how do humanists justify exclusive human moral priority without it becoming like species-level tribalism?
Well, Louis, I think that is an excellent point, and it's one of the reasons why I'm a vegan, because I think that humanists do tend to have this bias where they think that human beings are the most important thing in the world, and our values and our wants and our needs have to be more important because we are smarter, better, whatever justification insert here, right? That you put into that. But as humanists should be the first to recognize, look, we are an evolved species, and we're just as evolved as any other being on this earth that's evolved, right? We've changed. We have significantly different adaptations, but we're really not that different in terms of the nitty gritty. We still have nervous systems. We still have systems of nociception, all kinds of stuff that we share with other animals. So I don't like human supremacist ideas. I want to try to level that out. Now, to be clear, if there's a burning building and I either have to save a dog or a human baby, I'm going to save the human baby because I'm biased towards human beings. But in regular aspects of life, I want to try to normalize that. I want to try to level the playing field as much as I can so that we don't have to exploit animals, because I cannot philosophically justify it. So yeah, I don't know. We're thinking along the same lines there. But Jess, what do you think?
No, I agree with you, and I'm sure you would agree with me. I'd like to hear your guest host's opinion on this as well.
Yeah,
but
that's why I said, Jess, what do you think? Sorry, Louis, maybe you didn't catch that, but go ahead, Jess.
I was a vegan for a number of years myself, and I'm just learning about humanism now, so I feel like I don't have a lot to say on this one in particular. But you had mentioned sentience versus group tribalism. Could you expand on that a little bit for me?
Yeah, well, I think that a lot of people would agree that sentience is something that we value in other humans, right? It's that subjective experience. It's not like I think we don't value like a particular race or particular any particular traits, but the thing that I think we most value in terms of morality is like sentience. And I think because we value that in humans, that therefore we should really, to be like intellectually consistent, value that in other organisms that we can understand to be sentient, or that clearly seem to be sentient.
Yeah.
Again, I'm still learning about humanism, so I don't. I was vegan for 2 years. It was both I guess a moral issue and also a healthy one as well. And towards the more moral side of things, I think when you do choose a sentient being over what you would classify as a non-sentient being, you are making an active decision there. I think Dan definitely has been vegan and practicing a lot longer than I have in regards to that.
Yeah, there is a distinction, but I think that the distinction in terms of like moral value, I think is a reasonable distinction, since there's no like sufficient evidence that plants or rocks or anything are sufficient, but there does clearly seem to be sufficient evidence that animals, and humans are of course are animals, that we are sentient. And so if we say that like if I think you brought up plants, maybe because you're saying we're discriminating against plants, but I think that's in terms of morality, that's fine to discriminate against them because they're not sentient.
Yes, I'm in agreement with you, Louis, because some atheists like to bring this to my attention, and they're like, "Oh, hey, did you know plants can feel things?" And I'm like, "Did you read this in a popular science article? Because like, by what system are we talking about plants being able to feel things? We recognize that plants may be able to communicate things, right? And be able to interpret things through their own systems. But even if that's the case, that they do have some sort of system of nociception there, it's not something that we can evaluate at this time. What we can evaluate is everything that happens through animals, right? Evolutionarily, I don't think it makes sense for a plant to be able to feel pain. Pain is so that you can get away from something if you're a plant, what are you going to do? It doesn't make sense from an evolutionary standpoint. But with animals, they feel pain just like human beings do. And you know, you can argue about the complexity of that pain and what it looks like with the rest of human emotions. But by and large, if you have a nervous system and you can sense things, you can feel that kind of pain. So yeah, you know, Peter Singer first, you know, categorized this idea in his book Animal Liberation, which was written in the 70s, and he talks about speciesism, you know, and human beings by and large are pretty specious. We really think that human beings are all that matters at the end of the day. And of course, there's some people now that are challenging that idea, but that's kind of been the human norm for a long time, even amongst skeptical people that I would agree on other things with mostly, but not on this issue.
I agree, and I want to stress. What's the guest host name again? I'm sorry, I forgot the.
This is Jess who's speaking with you today, Louis.
Yeah, I'm Jess.
I don't remember the name because I had this show volume off because I just didn't want to disturb the call here, so I don't remember the guest host name.
No worries.
What was
did you have a further question?
Were you going to add to that?
Anyway, yeah, I was going to say that just because we value like other sentient animals, right, it doesn't mean we have to value them in the same exact way that we do humans, right? And so I think that's the point that Jamie brought up earlier. I'm sorry, that Dan brought up earlier, and I would agree with that, right? Like if it's between saving, you know, the baby or the dog, right? There's nothing wrong with saying that we would save the baby, right? But that doesn't mean that we don't value morally the dog, right? So yeah. we should value both morally because they're sentient, and of course goes for farmed animals as well.
I agree, Louis. We're on the same page here. We're in click step. It's Jess now that we have to convince on this. So Jess, what are your thoughts? I know you still, there are a lot, maybe this is you're not the call you were expecting. So did you have any other challenges to that perspective you wanted to bring to the table?
I don't really have challenges. I'm more interested in the group tribalism aspect of it. And I kind of wanted to know more about that.
Oh yes. Sorry, I didn't mean to like, so yeah, I think that, you know, I think in my view, right, like, well, I have a problem with tribalism in general, and I think it's kind of like a group think, you know, like in-group, out-group thing, and, you know, it applies to like nationalists and, you know, supremacists and cults and religions typically, but I think it also can apply to humanists, as I mentioned before, and I think that's maybe a short-sightedness by a lot of humanists. Now, I'm not saying that all humanists, you know, think in the same exact way, but I do think it's a type of in-group bias where the in-group is the humans and the excluded group are the sentient animals. And so I think it is a problem. You know, I think that humanism is a problem in that sense.
I think you're right. You know, and as somebody who identifies as a vegan publicly, it's weird because, again, even among some of my most open-minded friends, some of them still think it's okay to like make those kinds of jokes and to make those kinds of, you know, that kind of humor that I wouldn't expect them to make because they're supposed to be the sort of open, loving, sort of progressive people. But apparently I'm still one of those categories of groups of people where you can still make fun of them. You know, it's like, I thought we were supposed to be kind of all on the same page here about being progressive and being more open-minded. But yeah, I do see that bias still when it comes to thinking in terms of, you know, human supremacy, right? Yeah, it's definitely an area that I think other people are very clearly ignoring, or maybe don't want to talk about, because here's the thing: animals cannot, by and large, advocate for themselves, right? When we talk about injustices in human beings, those groups of people that are oppressed, they may not have the largest voice in the room, but there's still a voice you can go to. With animals, it's only going to ever be up to humans to make that change in justice. And it's a much harder thing to do. So I'm still going to do what I think is right at the end of the day. But yeah, I think more and more people are thinking in terms of how we think, Louis. You know, we'll see what it looks like 5-10 years from now, but I think it's getting some progress.
Yeah, I do too. I definitely think there's absolute progress. You know, veganism, of course, is not a diet, right? It's a principle of not being complicit in exploitation, right? That's needless exploitation. And so, you know, we have to be careful to not view veganism as a diet, which I think is done pretty often. But also the other thing, and I'll let you go. You guys probably have a number of other callers coming in, but I just wanted to stress also that these are sentient individuals. They're victims that are at, you know, on the other end of these decisions we make to eat their, you know, their flesh and their milk and their eggs. And so it's a pretty serious thing to really consider as soon as possible, you know.
I agree. Well, Louis, I don't know what else to say, because I pretty much agree with everything you said so far. And I don't know if that makes for very interesting conversation, except maybe if this is a perspective that you and I share and not many other people, which I do think is the case. But yeah, I appreciate you calling nonetheless. You know, haters will say that you're some sort of plant, I guess, pun intended, you know. But you know, you're just a random caller. And yeah, I definitely agree along the same lines of thinking. So thanks so much for calling the show.
All right. Speak to you next time.
Thanks again, Louis. Have a great one. So yeah, there you go. Talking a little bit about sentientism, talking about the rights of animals. Folks, we still have open lines where we want to talk to you about other subjects. But Jess, what did you think about that call?
I actually had a question for you, Dan.
Okay.
You said the name was Peter Singer and it was Animal Liberation. That was the book?
That's one of the first books I read when it came to animal rights. Yeah. Peter Singer's a philosopher, and Animal Liberation's name of that book. The other book that I always recommend to people is a book called Why We Eat. I always get the thing wrong. Why We Eat Pigs, Wear Cows. Man, what is it? Why We Eat Pigs, Wear Cows in... No, that's not true. Wait, hold on. Why We Eat Cows... No, I'm going to figure out that. Why We Love Dogs. Here we go. Why We Love Dogs, Eat Pigs, and Wear Cows. That's the name of the title. That's a book by Dr. Melanie Joy. And she talks also a lot about the philosophy or idea of carnism, which kind of plays along similar lines to speciesism. But yeah, those are the books that first kind of exposed me to those ideas. I always recommend people check those out.
I'm going to check those out. Thank you very much, Dan. I really appreciate that.
Of course. Well, I mean, it's something that I would not be or advocate for if it wasn't for folks directly challenging me about this on the ACA shows. And it's a humbling thing, because you already have to figure out the whole being Christian is wrong. And then you have to figure out this shit again that you're wrong about your ideas about your relationship between humans and animals and what's actually right and wrong there. So, you know, had to do it twice, and we'll probably do it again on many other issues. I hope, you know, if we get to that place.
Yeah, right on.
Yeah. Once again, folks, we have open lines at the moment. We want to talk to you about anything: aliens, Bigfoot, more questions about veganism. You want to tell me that I'm wrong and I'm wasting my time? I would love to hear it, because buying plant-based stuff all the time isn't always fun. So I would much rather like to eat cheeseburgers and stuff without feeling anything. That'd be awesome. So if you can get me out of it, that'd be great. Problem is I can't justify it anymore. So I'm kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. But you said you were vegan for a little bit. I guess, was that in part because you were sort of in this alternative belief community? Was it sort of a thing from that? Okay.
No, there was the moral aspect to part of it, and this may piss our caller off a little bit, but part of it was diet based. Like, I knew that I needed to make changes, and I saw that vegans lived a healthier lifestyle for the most part. I went down the rabbit hole, and I started trying to find vegan sour cream at the local grocery store, which is a hard thing to find in a small town, let me tell you. And you have to learn an entire new way to cook, because everything is meat and potatoes, you know. So when you're switching it up, and you can't rely on cheese for things anymore, it gets harder.
Yeah. Although, yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of alternatives now. It's definitely easier to be vegan in 2025 than it has been in a lot of other modern periods of history. And yeah, you're saying that, you might be pissed off. I think what he's speaking to is just more to this idea that a lot of people think veganism just starts and ends at the diet portion of it. But
Oh, I see. Yeah.
what he's really saying with that is it's about not exploiting animal products, period. So that's going to include things like clothes. It could include things like making a lower in carbon foot impact, right? So with your transportation, for example, or your use of electricity and other kinds of things. So yeah, it's the ending of animal exploitation, period. So that it could be SeaWorld stuff, right? Not you going to the circus,
Oh, yeah.
that kind of stuff too. So it's more to it than just the diet stuff. But most people, I think, they associate with the diet stuff because food is just that's an everyday thing for everybody, right? It always comes up. So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, a lot of topics and questions there. I think again, it's one of those things where I still feel sheepish talking about it sometimes because a lot of folks in our community just don't feel exactly the same way, and it becomes really awkward when you think you're on the same page with everybody about stuff, and it turns out it's not. So is there beliefs that you hold that you think you differ from the rest of our community on?
The rest of the community, I don't know that, because there's the smaller community that makes up the larger community, and it ebbs and flows. But I think for the most part, I don't know. I can't think on the spot for that, and I can't think of anything.
Yeah, if you could change one thing about the atheist community, what would it be? Because I'll tell you, I could probably write a list of things I wish were different.
Really?
I think so.
Okay, now I'm curious about your list.
Well, I kind
wanna
of talked
listen
about
to your
this last
thing.
week a little bit. It's more just like we aren't always the most welcoming people. Like we don't really have a great path of entry. Okay. Well, here's what I mean by that. You want to show up to a church? Yeah, everybody's gonna let you in. Yeah, come on in. Yeah, come sit next to me. Oh, you want to come to this? Yeah, let's do that. Atheist communities that I've been a part of and that I've seen online, there can be openness and there can be a willingness to acceptance, but there can also be an elitism that you see there, right? That I never experienced as a Christian. I mean, there's definitely sorts of in biases that come when you're already part of a Christian community, right? So like some people saying, oh, you need to start reading this like every day if you want to be a better Christian, that kind of thing. But when it comes to taking people into the fold, I mean, Christians are by and large, they've been doing it better because they've got a whole thing going. They've been doing it for a long time. Atheists or not, the path to get there isn't as well paved. It's a harder road to go down, I think, especially because community is already hard enough to find, let alone people that you want to spend time with. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean, and community is so completely important, and maintaining a strong atheist community that is welcoming and kind to newcomers without being like the folks that knock on the door. We'd like to talk to you about atheism today, please. But I think getting out is also important to events and different assemblies that you can attend and things like that, because there are things out there and you can make friends and wiggle your way into the community. But I agree. I think we do need to be more open for newer people that want to get into the community.
Yeah. And I want to be clear when I'm talking about this too, because when I say newer people, I don't even mean new atheists. I don't even mean people who are calling themselves that. I'm talking about people who are exploring ideas and testing things with people. A lot of people don't realize this, but when people are expressing their beliefs with you, they can test things with you sometimes. I've had this happen in my real life on several occasions when they find out I'm an atheist and they want to talk to me about Christianity stuff. It's not because they want to make me a Christian. It's because they want to test their own ideas with somebody. And I wish people recognize that when those interactions are happening more, because they think it's an act of proselytization. And I'm not saying it never is, but I'm saying this sort of exploration happens with a lot more people than you might give credit for, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, yeah. What is something else on your list outside of
I don't know.
Sorry.
We need to have, I don't know, the whole, tips, fedora, milady kind of imagery, energy. That's still kind of there, I think, for some people. Not like that specifically. I think more just like when I go on to like r/atheism, I want to cringe, because there's a lot of like unattainable arguments I find that are a bit tiresome. A lot of people get into much more contentious, specious ground, right? Like you'll see a post about the Bible or something, and somebody will say, "Oh, the Bible was written by Bronze Age, farmers or shepherds who didn't know what they're talking about." It's like, well, I mean, there's a better answer you can give than that, right? Like there's a more historical, sort of more reputable answer. I'm not saying you have to say it's a reliable source, but like you can do it without, completely sounding biased, because it's what it sounds like, right? It sounds like you're going to be biased if you're too on the offensive in that regard.
If you call it like a sky daddy or something like that, that's not the
sky
way
daddy
to
stuff.
Have like
that kind of
you want
thing.
to have if you would want to have an honest interlocutor, I think we all have to be honest interlocutors and kind of approach things wherein maybe I am wrong. Maybe this belief that I have, and then we get into street epistemology,
right?
And exploring beliefs and why we believe those things and levels of confidence in them. And then I guess that brings back to like me coming out of paganism and stuff like that, is almost like street epistemologizing myself, asking myself questions. Yeah,
that makes sense. Yeah, because for me, ultimately, like I don't do this stuff or talk about this stuff because I want to be better than other people. I want to do this because I genuinely think I can help people, and also because I want to explore these ideas. I think some people take this stuff and they want to feel good about other people being wrong or being stupid in their eyes, right?
I want to know. I want to know if I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So I can readjust, and then maybe my worldview isn't the worldview that I should have. And I want to be able to analyze them myself and take in the beliefs of other people. One thing I do find when you announce that you're atheist to somebody, I find is that they, a lot of the time, can take it as an attack on their own beliefs.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Where it's like, oh, you're an atheist, so there is no God. You're saying there's no God, and how could that be? And they get offended that, oh, you're no heaven and all of those things. And I think if we talk to people in the mean way, the goat herder's guide to the Bible way, we kind of lose those important conversations.
Yeah, that's a great point too, because some people really do take Christianity as part of their personal identity in such a way where it's like an explicit rejection of that becomes an explicit rejection of themselves when you get so closely aligned, and that's a hard thing to sort of reconcile with. And by the way, I think atheists can do that too. I think if you're somebody who says you can never be friends with like a Christian, I think that says more about you than it does about the Christian, right? Because Christians can come in many different flavors, and to make that presupposition outright or predisposition outright, that's just bias. That's just, really doesn't make you any better in that respect.
Would you marry or date somebody that was a Christian?
Now, see, that's a little different, I think, in my experience. Because, I mean, you tell me, you're asking me questions like, you're not the guest here. I don't know what's up with that, Jess.
Because usually I ask questions.
I'll say for my part, you know, it was definitely harder dating as an atheist than it was as a Christian. I dated a Christian for a while, and she was accepting of that. And while I was doing this show stuff, even, but I'm married to an atheist now, and I'm gonna tell you, I can't really imagine myself being with a Christian at this point, because that kind of intimacy in a relationship, I mean, inevitably your values and your religion is just going to play a part. I know people that have interfaith relationships and they seem to work it out, and that's great. It would be really hard for me, though. I would say you'd have to be an extremely liberal Christian. That's really the only way that's going to work.
Too.
Yeah. What about you?
No, I'm in the same boat. I don't think at this point because my life is so revolved around the atheist community and activism and things like that, I think that maybe I would hurt somebody's feelings if I was like, okay, I'm going to be on a show tonight and they're discussing young earth creationism and the person is a young earth creationist.
Right.
I could see that being an issue, which has happened before, actually.
Really? So like you doing activist stuff got in the way with your dating life, you mean?
It did. I asked somebody if they were Christian when we had first matched, and they were like, "Well, no, not religious." And I was like, "Oh no, is it the relationship with Jesus?" It wasn't just a relationship with Jesus, though. It was full on young earth creationism. And he said that he wasn't super religious, and I was like, "How can you say that you're not super religious if you're following like a biblical account of the world's beginning?" I guess there was a disconnect there for me that I didn't see. And
I think that's because that young earth creationist narrative is so ingrained in particular. I mean, I know you're in Canada, but let's be real. It's a pretty American phenomenon as well, that I don't even think people even realize that's a Christian perspective. You know?
We've got answers in Genesis Canada too. They're sneaking in.
But I'm saying in American public schools, I mean, people will teach young earth creationist ideas, right? So, you know, they may not associate it. Yeah.
I don't
know. I'm just speculating. So I'm guessing it didn't work out then.
No, it did not work out.
Yeah.
That was his decision, not mine, though. I was curious. I had questions. I always have questions.
Right. And that can turn people off too, when you ask too many questions and you want to think about stuff too much, you know. That's definitely happened with me. God, so the worst was when I was atheist, and then I was like, oh shit, I think I'm identifying, you know, with this sort of vegan philosophy, and it's like, damn, I'm out for two, because it's like, how do what's the Venn diagram of people that vibe with that? You know what I mean? Like my dating pool probably just got a million times smaller, and I think it did. And I'm really grateful for my relationship with my wife. But you know, that I think in itself is going to be a barrier to entry for people to even get this far, because people like talking to other people and having intimate relationships, and obviously it is harder if you fall into those categories.
It's true. But like, it's hard though, because I still like having those conversations, and I'm interested in having those conversations with people that I do meet, whether it's on a dating app or sitting down somewhere and somebody decides to start up a conversation. I like those topics, you know. But then they get upset when you don't believe what they believe.
Right. Yeah, and it's hard, because then there's a pressure too to want to just keep things sort of level, sort of not advocate for yourself and what you thought. At least it was for me. I was very much more passive than I am today when it came to that kind of stuff. So I didn't rock the boat as much as I felt like I really should have, because I just wanted to keep things cool with people. You know, I didn't want to raise any people's ires. But by doing that, I was also not being my most honest self. And that had its own psychological complications. So it's a give and take there. And I'm glad I'm the person I am today. I'm glad I don't have to compromise, in at least most of the time. And I don't think anybody should have to.
Oh, I love that you don't compromise. I love that.
Thanks. I don't think you do either, Jess. At least it doesn't seem like it.
No, I don't compromise.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Folks, we are still at open lines right now. 512-991-9242 or call through your computer at tiny.cc/calltw. This is a call-in show, and I want to talk to you about whatever it is you want to talk about. Now I want to switch the conversation topic up, Jess. I want to talk to you about young earth creationism.
No.
Because you called yourself a young earth creationist. How far did it go for you? What was the extent? Did you take everything hook, line, and sinker when it came to the stuff?
I sure did.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So okay, where to start? So, I'm going to bring back a memory for some people here. There was a time when they would roll into the classroom the TV with the VCR and everything, and you get excited because in class that just meant you got to watch a video for the remainder of the class. Well, it was generally Kent Hovind that was rolled in.
I'm so sorry.
And if you,
by the way, really sorry about that. You know, that you had to.
If you're unfamiliar, Kent Hovind runs Dinosaur Adventureland and has a whole DVD series that is available to most churches that are, I think he's Independent Baptist, and that's why they had it in my school specifically. And I was also a horse girl. I was a little obsessed with horses.
Nice.
And there was these eyewitness books, and Eyewitness Pirates, Eyewitness Horses specifically. And there was this whole section on the evolution of horses. And my mom almost ripped it out of the book because that's not real. It was right down to her saying, Satan put the bones there to confuse us.
Yes. That's my favorite. Yeah, I love that one. Oh, man. Wow.
It was a lot. And I believed her. I was like, I don't know why that they're trying to lie to us. That's horrible.
About horses specifically too, you know, like that's, you know, I guess it's part of the larger plot, right?
Well, I thought it was fascinating, the evolution of how their hooves became hooves even. And she was like, no, that never happened.
Wow.
Close the book, take it away sort of thing. Yeah. No, so it was.
You alluded earlier that you're on a no contact basis with your mom. Are you like that with other members of your family too? And is that because of your change in beliefs, or is it for unrelated reasons?
I told her that I was an atheist when I was 30 years old, and she said, "You are not." That was her response.
She just said, "You're not."
And
like
you're not.
Oh, okay.
And and that was the last time we spoke.
Wow.
It's unfortunate, but I am honestly one of those estranged children that is so much happier in my atheist heathen lifestyle than I ever was.
And why do you think that is?
There's a lot of ideas that come along with Christianity, I think, that weave their way into the belief system. Beliefs about race, beliefs about the government, beliefs about everything that comes with that. And sometimes we just have to separate ourselves from toxic people, and it takes a lot of therapy, but you know, you can come out on the other side and it'll be okay. It'll 100% be okay.
Yeah.
And then it's about making community again, you know?
Right. Definitely. I have a family member who works with a care for older people, and she's in a position where she has to call family up and basically be like, hey, what do you want us to do with this person? You're the person that's written out for their care and stuff. And she talks to a lot of family that doesn't want anything to do with these family members. And the way that she talks to me about it, and she says it's a sad thing that these people, they sons and daughters don't want anything to do with these family members. And, you know, she sees it as a sad thing. And I agree, it is a sad thing. And I wish I could, you know, make those relationships great. But I told this person in my family, like, I can't speak to whether they're right or wrong in them separating. What I do know is that I've known people that separate from their family, and they do it because they needed to. And that's what was the best decision for them. And you may be seeing little old grandma or grandpa at the home, but you didn't see them when they were at home with their family and how they treated them and what that relationship looked like. And some people don't recognize that stuff in themselves, and realize the things that they say or did, right?
That's true. And it's one of those hard things coming away. And like, I don't speak to anybody in my family in regards to that. I didn't have a big family to begin with, though, so it's 3 people. It's not the be all and end all. But I think making community and having those supports within, I'm going to say the atheist community specifically, and being able to come to people and have different relationships with different people and everything like that, and then you realize that there are people out there that are going to support you, whether or not you believe what they believe or not. And I think we as a community need to be open to bringing people in that do need that community.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we keep using the word community. We talked about this recently on the show too, but like, that's because many of us had to come to terms with a chosen family rather than a blood family, because a blood family doesn't always accept us for who we are. And that's a terrible, terrible thing. I wish it wasn't the case, and I wish everybody could get along. And some people do. I talk to my family, and they don't always like the stuff I have to say, but I still get to see them every Christmas. That's not a privilege that everybody in our community gets to have. And so if there's anybody that, that understands that, it's the folks who have been rejected themselves. But it's hard if you've had your family and you get along and everything's just great. It's hard to see why somebody would want to go to a chosen family rather than family that you have, right?
Sometimes things get really, really dark when you're with people that are toxic, and there's a light at the end of the tunnel. You don't have to stay with people that are toxic. I guess is the message I want people to take away from that. Some people are just not good people, and when we remove the toxicity from our lives, it lets us grow into better people, really. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's true. I don't, again, this is going back to, I don't think you should conform or do what you think you need to do just to keep the peace. I mean, I think that's appropriate sometimes. If you're at a funeral and somebody says, oh, they're in heaven now, maybe you shouldn't correct them at the funeral, right? That's the example I kind of go to. But outside of that, if you're living your life and somebody on the street saying, I don't like what you're doing, or I don't like who you are, you shouldn't have to tolerate that. You should be able to tell people to fuck off. That's my personal philosophy on that. I don't know.
You want another dating story?
Yes, I do want to know another dating story. And then I think we're going to get to another caller here in just a sec.
Okay. I met an atheist, and we were having great conversations until I said, I know, man, it would be really cool if there was an afterlife, if there was a heaven. And he's like, what do you mean there's not?
Oh, man.
I was like, no.
Wait, so he was an atheist that believes in an afterlife. Okay. What does that mean exactly?
Right. Because he says to me that the only thing keeping him sane is the idea that he'll get to see his father again in the afterlife. And when it's a belief like that separates somebody so strongly, there's no real conversation that can happen there that's going to be good from my end of things, because he actually got mad at me when I said that I didn't believe in a heaven or an afterlife of some sort. And it's one of those beliefs that, or situations that I come back to when I'm speaking with other people. Like, atheists literally just don't have a God belief. That's it. There can be other people that have different beliefs outside of atheism, right down to an afterlife. So it's something that I try and take into consideration when I'm talking to people, like just a God belief. Maybe they have other beliefs, and you've got to kind of ask questions and figure things out where they stand on other issues.
Yeah, that's another. We were talking about criticisms of the atheist community. That's another weakness, I think, is that if somebody is believing something for what may be because of a psychological sort of need, we don't really have the best tools to really work with that or deal with that. Like that's a belief that has to be worked out in a longer term rather than a single conversation that you're going to have with somebody about, why they believe something like that. And a therapist might even say that that's an okay belief to have, that it's not even something that really needs to be messed with, right? If it's reasonable to somebody's psychological, stability or whatever. But and that's the thing where we're all kind of just freewheeling here. At the same time, I think anybody should be able to talk about whatever they want. So it's one of those kinds of deals. But moving on from that subject, or maybe not actually, because I think we have a caller who wants to talk to us about something similar. We have Benjamin calling in from Illinois who wanted to speak with us. Benjamin, you are live on Truth Wanted. What's going on? Hello, Benjamin. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Awesome. There we go. Hey, Benjamin, how are you?
I'm doing all right. Having a cold evening, but other than that, I'm doing just fine.
Gotcha. Yep. It is definitely getting to that time of year, isn't it? What did you want to talk to us about tonight?
I just noticed that like some of the topics you guys have been talking around or talking with had to do with leaving religion and how to still have kind of like a relationship with the people in your lives that are still religious. And I am coming up on the first holiday season without my dad. And so I'm trying to figure out how to engage with my family, not being a religious person, not celebrating holidays, not being, especially Christmas. I've had a lot of bad ones. Don't really engage with it. I go and I spend time, but I don't want to feel pressured, and I don't think there are many people in my family that would make me feel pressured to like force joy and like celebration on me. But I don't know. I'm just having a lot of anxiety about it, and I was wondering how you guys deal with that.
Yeah. So help me clarify something. When you say without your dad, do you mean your dad has passed away, or you mean you're not going to?
He passed at the beginning. He passed at the beginning of last year from brain cancer.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. And you're saying that you're going to see the rest of your family still this Christmas, and you're not sure what that's going to look like.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
There are a handful of them that are like far more religious than others, but all of them have some sort of faith and they have like community around that. But I do not have that. I've been an atheist for a long time.
Gotcha. Jess, what were you going to ask?
My first question would be, like, you had said that it's not something that you normally, like, you're not really a Christmas person. What was something meaningful that you used to do with your dad before he passed around this time?
Honestly, we just sit. We had they live in the country and they have a big machine shed, and we would just sit and talk and play cards. So, like every holiday, we would sit, talk, play cards, catch up. Enjoy
that sounds nice.
Time. So.
Could you facilitate a card game with your family? Would they be down for that? Is that something?
Yeah. I'm sure that there will be stuff like that going on. It's just, I don't know. I feel like every time that I get around them and the topic of like loved ones past and gone comes up, like every single time, they all kind of seem like it's like, oh, they're still around and all this other stuff. And I'm just like, I don't feel that. I don't.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense to me. Like, I don't, like, I have the memory of that person. I have the memory of the time that I spent with that person, but I don't have this idea that they're like watching over me or anything like that. So it's like, I still have connection with these people, but I don't have the same kind of almost supernatural feeling that they have towards the memories of people in our family that have gone. So
yeah, that's really hard. But I guess my perspective on this as I'm listening to you talk is, just like how we were talking about earlier, how some of these kinds of beliefs serve as sort of a psychological sort of safety net. It might be the case that your family is kind of doing the same thing, and they knew your dad in other ways, right? And they had that relationship with him in other ways. And their way of talking about him in this way is their own form of processing and their own form of grieving. And it's just going to be different from yours in that respect, right? So I totally get how it could feel isolating, but maybe it's also just a space where they're just going to express it in the way that they feel best. And maybe you can find ways to talk about it that are also sort of appropriate to share, like talking about that memory playing cards, right? Like, talking about the times when he was alive and when you got to spend time with him. And that's the way you can sort of, process that. I know it's difficult, and I feel like that's not, this is the best I can come up with here, because it is really hard, isn't it?
It is. Especially like I live a few hours away from them, and I barely see my family because traveling's expensive. Work gets in the way, everything else, life. So like, and I'm kind of a hermit. They are definitely hermits. They live in the country. They, spend a lot of time not really like engaging or like visiting other people, like other than the people in their immediate vicinity. And years ago, I decided that I couldn't live that small town life. I needed something a little bit larger, a little bit more anonymity in my existence. So I kind of left, and every time I come back, I feel like a little bit more disconnected. And like, I still want to keep some connection, but I don't want to feel like I'm completely abandoning like where I come from, even though like, a lot of my worldviews and things like that have shifted far away from them.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this, and I want to hear Jess's thoughts, but respect is a two-way street, right? You are obviously, by your apprehension and your anxiety, you're already worried about this interaction. And you got to think, are they worried about it? Talking to you? I mean, maybe they are, but maybe they're not. And if they're not worried about it, what does that say about that relationship? Right? Because they should be able to speak with you openly and honestly in the same way that you want to speak to them. So there may be a difference in values there that could make that difficult. And rather than attempting to change those values, maybe it's time to be open and honest and examining that and see if it's worth maintaining the relationship at the level that you want to retain it at. At the same time, though, I will say, it hasn't, you haven't been there yet. Maybe going this year, see how it goes. And if it's truly still uncomfortable, maybe it's time to see what that relationship looks like in the future. But, it could go better than you expect too, right?
Yeah.
A lot of things there.
And I am lucky in the fact that like my brother and my mother, like my immediate family, we're still very close.
That's great.
It's just kind of the more extended family that I'm more disconnected from, especially my dad's family, because he had 8 brothers and sisters. So it's a lot.
I can imagine.
A lot of different views, but all of it is based in some sort of religious community, which is something that I had growing up, but no longer engage with.
I hear you, Benjamin. Hey, listen, you try talking to your religious family when you publicly post your opinion on the internet every Friday, for a couple of years, and you see how that turns out. Let me tell you, okay, I can relate and understand completely to that, but less about me. I want to hear Jess's thoughts.
Mm-hmm. Well, I wanted to start building off what Dan had said, basically in that we all grieve in our own way. Yeah. And I want to share a thing leaning a little more to the pagan rather than the Christian side. I had a friend pass away, and I actually had been a member of the pagan community that he was a part of, and I was no longer, but he had passed away. And so I ended up going to a public ritual as an atheist, and just being there to support the other people as well that were going through the loss of our friend. And I think I definitely understand your anxiety. And I wonder if perhaps they have some anxiety as well in talking to somebody that doesn't necessarily believe what they believe. And perhaps something to ease the anxiety would be to come up with a ritual of sorts. And in this case, I mostly mean the card game. Play some cards with the family, talk about your dad, talk about memories, make it a really special thing, and tell them that it has meaning for you. Don't just assume that they'll understand that it will. Because I think when we communicate those things to people, especially has your dad passed away fairly recently? Is this your first holiday season without your
That's what you said
dad?
earlier. Yeah.
It was the end of January last year. Yeah. It was very quick. He got diagnosed in November, and by the end of January, he had passed. Luckily, he was where the tumor was in his cognitive region, so he literally had no clue what was going on. He was just like, I'm getting fed a bunch of milkshakes and hanging out, and, and the next thing you knew, he had passed. But it was just incredibly quick, and because of the nature of his disease, the one thing that was actually kind of weirdly good about it was that he did not really, it seemed like he didn't even understand that he was sick.
Wow. Yeah.
Are there stories perhaps that could be told around the table of your dad, and perhaps the more interesting or funnier things that had happened between different people, and just kind of bringing that memory to the table rather than making it a spiritual connection, and make it more that you are sharing an experience with a person that you both knew, or that all of you knew, and just, I guess, push the anxiety into being excited to share that experience with people, whether or not you see them again after today or not, or after that experience. That could be important for you too, I think, and kind of think about maybe more than a card game. Maybe there's some other things that you would want to do with people that would have meaning for you or meaning for them. Maybe find out if there's something that they used to eat all together or drink all together at the holidays, and kind of make it a special occasion without it being an overly religious one.
Yeah, that's good advice. I appreciate that.
I like that. Benjamin, I'll leave with this because your story made me think about when my grandmother passed a few years ago. And I remember being at her funeral and the pastor saying something along the lines of, well, the most important thing was that she was a Christian before she passed. I'm paraphrasing, but it was something along those lines. And that pissed me the fuck off, because this guy doesn't know shit about my grandma. And that wasn't the most important thing about her to me. But, obviously at the time I was a little peeved, but thinking about it later, my grandmother was a Christian. And you know what? She might have actually agreed with what that pastor had to say about her own faith, as much as I like that or not, right? At the end of the day, the people that you're talking to, they're all adults. and they're all going to make their own decisions and their own interpretations about life and death and what's important and what's not. What you can do, the best thing, is exactly what Jess is talking about. Making the most of what you have, whether it be those memories or those traditions or new traditions. That's what you can bring to the table, and you can do it in a way that doesn't humiliate others, doesn't put other people down, other groups of people down, doesn't says one is better than the other. It's just being, and just being there with your family, because that's what we can do at the end of the day, right? That's what we got. So I don't know, Benjamin, those are my thoughts.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I
push
hope
the negativity out, man.
Yeah. You got to, right?
Yeah.
Holidays are supposed to be about fun. It's not supposed to be about stressing out, but
argue about the eggnog.
Easier said than done. I get it for sure. Anything else you want to shout out or talk to us about before I let you go tonight?
I mean, I love the show. I love this. I love what you guys do. I've been listening to all of the shows on the ATA for a long time now. I recommend you to everybody that I know that is going through any sort of deconversion or questioning, just because I think your content really does help kind of enlighten people, and it's helped with my critical thinking skills a ton. Like, it allows me to kind of evaluate what I think, what I believe, what I feel, and see if like what I am going through in like my emotions and my understanding of the world is accurate, and am I understanding and like believing as many true things as possible. And I found myself at fault in a lot of my thinking, and it's helped a ton.
Wow, what a thoughtful and kind response. Thank you so much for that, Benjamin. That really made my night. I hope you have a great rest of your night, and I hope you have a great holiday. If you can, I'd love for you to call back and tell me how it went. Okay, give me a little trip report, good or bad. I want to hear it.
Will do.
So maybe we could do that.
All right. What card game you play?
Yeah, I want to know what card game you play. If you're playing Balatro with the folks, I want to hear about it. But anyway, Benjamin, I'll let you go. Thanks again for calling in. Hope you have a great rest of your evening. And with that, great call. I'm feeling for Benjamin.
I am too. That would drive my anxiety up the wall as well. Definitely.
It would for me as well. I'm like kind of doing something similar right now with I'll just say it, with my dad. So like my dad, he's not passed, he's alive, but he wants to do this backpacking trip with me next year. Be going for like a week. We used to backpack a lot when I was younger. And then, my dad's getting older, and I'm thinking, oh man, is this going to be like the last time I get to do something like that with him? And my dad and I, if you can believe it, we don't believe quite the same things. Okay. So, I'm worried, are we going to get into a tiff while we're out in the middle of the mountains? Is that going to be a big deal or not? I don't know. I'm going to have to find out. But you know what? I had to stick with what I said if I'm not going to be a hypocrite. At the end of the day, I'm an adult. It's going to think the way I think, and he's an adult. He's going to think the way he thinks, and it's going to make the decisions he makes. And I got to be okay with that, right? Because what else can I do? But I don't know. What were your thoughts on that, Jess? This call and everything.
I feel so much for it with the anxiety for Benjamin and surrounding. I think part of me would still be a little excited because these are people that knew my dad as well. And I get to kind of have an experience again through them of how I related to my dad.
Yeah.
I guess that's my thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good, but it's good to be positive about this because like, I don't know Benjamin's family. They could be exactly and react exactly the way he's thinking. Or it could be an anxiety response that's kind of overcorrecting. And maybe they bring up religion like once, but the rest of the time is probably going to be fine. I don't know. Because that can happen too. Sometimes when we've been exposed to the kinds of stuff that you, I, and probably Benjamin have, you can kind of lose trust in people sometimes to act in the ways you hope. So maybe there's a little bit of that going on. I don't know, but I hope Benjamin does okay. And on that note, I want to also thank you, Jess, for being on tonight's episode of Truth Wanted. Really appreciate you coming on down to the show.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yes, and if people want to find out where they can get more of your stuff, where should they go?
I'm on YouTube. How to Rule an Asteroid. That's mostly what I do. Is I rule the asteroid, and I make shorts and little apocalypse videos involving chickens sometimes.
Yeah,
but come on, we have a lot of fun. Yeah.
If you want to get context on that, go check out Jess's channel. And I also need to bring in Kelley real quick because we need to thank him for being our backup host. Thanks, Kelley. Appreciate it.
Hey, well, thanks for having me here. Can I mention something to you real quick though, Dan?
Of course you can, Kelley. You always got something to say.
Somebody that we should really thank before we end the show is the crew.
That's right. I was getting to that.
Okay, cool.
I was on my way
because I really love those guys. They do so much hard work to make us look good. No, I mean I just show up and talk, and everybody always thanks me for the work I do, and I'm like, I don't do anything but talk. It's those guys who are doing all the work. So
I feel the exact same way. We should get on that crew cam as soon as they are able to and show all the people and cats included, that are making this show happen, and folks that are off camera right now. So thank you, crew, for doing what you do. Oh, wait, where's Kelley? We gotta bring Kelley back still. Kelley, hold on. There he is.
Here I am talking good about the crew, and they dissed me like that. Huh?
Yeah, they just shucked you away. They put you in the Kelley hole, and they wouldn't let you come out.
We need a new name for that.
I don't know. I like Kelley hole.
I'm sticking with it until somebody tells me otherwise. Okay.
So, another thing too, before we end the show, I think you have some super chats to read out. I don't know if you caught that.
Did I miss super chats earlier? Were they coming in? Oh my goodness.
It's a good thing I was here, huh?
Wow, there's a couple of them too. How did I miss all of these? What the heck? I'm so sorry, super chatters, because you're probably like, what the heck, you got ripped off. Okay, let's go through some of these. We got one from Detroit Atheist Queen at 247 who gave $5. Thanks so much. And says, from ruling asteroids for ruling these theist callers, hashtag you rock, hashtag Team Jess. You got fans in the audience tonight, Jess. That's great.
I do. I love you, Kelley.
That's awesome. Thanks so much for that. And another donation from Fern Love Bond, who gave $2 and said, Jess, consider atheopaganism, link in Discord DM. Okay. So somebody's putting it. Have you heard of that? Atheopaganism?
I've heard the term, but I don't know much about it. I'm curious. Fern and I will have to talk.
I have some ideas about probably what that is, but we're kind of at the tail end of the show here. Maybe that's for a different time. We could talk about it. Another donation was from Crispin Slit, who gave £2 and as a member for 2 months, and said, my name is Logan Dan, not Crispin. So I get it, but it's there. It says Crispin. I'm just, that's your YouTube name at least. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Anyway, appreciate the donation. Last one from the Kentucky Atheist, who gave $2 and said, great guest host tonight. Thanks, guys. I agree. I also think Jess was a great guest tonight.
I agree too, Joe.
Yeah, for sure. Folks, if you want to comment below, you should, because our prompt this week, Kelley, is what?
I forgot, right? It's, what is an innocent text during the day, but not at night?
Innocent text during the day, but not at night. I totally flubbed this week.
I'm on my way over right now.
I didn't even give an answer. That's I don't know. Like, I just, it's not coming to mind. I'm not being creative. So that's on me.
That was the only thing I could think of. I'm on my way over right now.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, that's
about the only thing I could think of. It's not funny, but
yeah. Or if you're like, hey, I see you over there or something.
Ooh.
All right. How about that?
That was a good
all right,
one.
that's my answer. You guys can't take that one. Comment below and do something else. Okay. Kelley, I don't think I'm missing anything, right? I think we covered all the
I think you got it all now.
I think we got it all. Thanks everybody for being on today. Last thing we always like to do, Jess, is we're asking for words of wisdom. So you have any words of wisdom you want to give us before we close out tonight's program?
Words of wisdom. Oh, I wasn't prepared for that part.
I never prepare the guests for the words of wisdom.
Yeah,
it's got to be spontaneous.
Kindness,
it's got to be whatever comes to heart. You got to tell me what's speaking to your heart right now, Jess. And don't tell me Jesus.
The word of the day, I think, the word of the day, I think, is kindness. And one of the callers today, I think it was Benjamin, made me think that I think kindness is really important, especially this time of year, no matter the people. And I think we need to keep kind to the people around us, because we never know what's going on in someone else's life. And again, this time of year, I think that's very important, because a lot of people are very sad, and we don't always know that.
Absolutely. Be kind, because you don't know what other people are going through. I like it. Folks, I'm Objectively Dan. This has been another great episode of Truth Wanted. Remember to always keep wanting the truth, and we'll see you next time.
Watch the non-profits and join the hosts in the live chat. Visit tiny.cc/ytnp.